said, opening the pub's large red door and holding it for Mel. Before following her through it, I flipped the wooden closed sign hanging on the outside of the door, so the open side faced outward. "How's the catapult coming along?" Was all I could come up with as the door fell shut behind me. "That bad?" Mel said with a grin. "With Damien out of town the past couple of days, progress has stalled." Mel shrugged out of her green military surplus jacket. "I'll come early tomorrow to lend a hand," she promised. "Thank you. We're going to need all the hands we can get." Although the entire Autumn Festival was a highly anticipated event in Shady Creek, the most popular part of it was the pumpkin catapult competition, held at the end of the 9-day festival. Local businesses and other groups formed teams, with each one building its own catapult. Distance and accuracy were important when it came to catapulting the pumpkins, and the winning team would receive a trophy and, more importantly, bragging rights for the next 12 months. I'd never anticipated that I'd need construction skills when I'd purchased the pub, but participation in the competition was expected. Luckily, Damien, another of my employees, did carpentry on the side, and had designed the catapult for the Inkwell's team. The actual construction had yet to begin, however. I wasn't overly concerned. Damien would be back to work on the catapult the next day, and I figured that as long as we had one good enough to allow us to participate in the competition, that would suffice. I had enough on my plate without worrying about winning a contest that was all about having fun. "How about the book clubs?" Mel asked. "Are you having more luck with them?" "Definitely." I couldn't help but smile. "The first one is tomorrow night. 6 people have signed up." "Sounds like a great start." That was my thought exactly. The idea of hosting book clubs at the Inkwell excited me to no end, and so far, the local response had pleasantly surprised me. The next night's romance book club had the most people signed up at the moment, but there had also been interest in the mystery book club starting up in a couple of weeks, and I was hoping to organize another one for science fiction and fantasy readers. As Mel disappeared into the back of the pub, where the kitchen and tiny cloakroom were located, I remained by the front door, surveying the main room. When I'd purchased the building and business, the pub had been quite ordinary, aside from the beautiful historic building that housed it. It was a place for townsfolk to gather and chat over a pint or two, but it wasn't much beyond that. As soon as it had passed into my possession, I'd made sure to change that. I'd long dreamed of owning my own bookstore, but when I'd arrived in Shady Creek, trying to escape the ruins of my former life in Boston, I'd fallen in love with the renovated grist mill as soon as I'd seen it. When I found out that it was for sale, it seemed like a sign from the universe, and I'd used nearly all of my savings to purchase the mill and business, setting my life on a new course that I'd never anticipated. Briefly, I'd considered transforming the pub into a bookstore, but once I'd realized that it was a favorite gathering place for the locals, I changed my mind, and instead incorporated my passion for books into the existing business. I'd been a bibliophile for as long as I could remember, since before I could even read the words on the pages. My dad had read to me every night as a young child, and his home library, though housed in a small room, had seemed like such a magical place to me while growing up. Once I could read on my own, I devoured story after story, working my way through books by C.S. Lewis, Enid Blyton, Kit Pearson, and many others. I'd feasted on series like Nancy Drew and The Babysitter's Club, and once I'd discovered Agatha Christie's novels, I was hooked on mysteries for life. My dad had passed away a few years ago, and I still missed him all the time, but I knew I'd never lose the love for books he'd instilled in me. That's why it seemed so right to work books into my new business, even if not in the way I'd imagined while growing up and dreaming of one day having my own bookshop. Once the purchase of the mill was finalized, I renamed the pub and gave it a literary theme, with drinks named for famous books and fictional characters. I was hoping to add some literary-themed food to the menu soon, too, and my extensive collection of books lined the shelf.